I hope that, I just want to share about, we touched on this a bit, but how empowering it is to be connected to your body. And one thing I wanted to share just personally is that we talked about how, the fertility awareness method can be used for achieving pregnancy or preventing pregnancy. But one thing that I've learned through charting is, again, I went off birth control. I was on birth control, hormonal birth control for 15 years. I actually went off of it about 8 to 9 months ago now. And my
Mhm.
cycles, the first few cycles, I will warn you, is quite wonky when you first go off birth control because your body's just trying to regulate. And I wanted to go off of it because I've been wanting to for a long time to practice a fertility awareness method, but also because eventually I want kids and I wanted to make sure my body was, kind of regulating before that. And from charting, I've learned that actually my luteal phases are really short. So
Mm.
it's kind of ranging from like some days, some cycles was like 6 days. So one time it went back to 12, but then it fell back to 8. And just so for the listeners here, your luteal phase is not supposed to fluctuate like this, and it's
Yes.
not supposed to be this short. Like, a healthy luteal phase is around 14 days, give or take 2 days, and you definitely want it to be above 10 days because if it's any less, it doesn't give the egg enough time to burrow, and that means that it could lead to a miscarriage.
Welcome to the Cyclical Doula podcast. I'm Emma, a certified fertility awareness educator, miscarriage doula, and the founder of MMA LLC. This space is for women who want to understand their bodies deeply, not just memorize information, but actually feel confident in interpreting their cycles. Here, we talk about ovulation, hormones, cervical mucus, basal body temperature, and all that messy in between emotional layers that come with being a woman. We talk about trying to conceive, avoiding pregnancy without hormones, postpartum transitions, pregnancy loss, perimenopause, and everything in between. Because body literacy isn't just about charting. It's about the autonomy. It's about informed consent. It's about not outsourcing your reproductive decisions to guesswork or fear. Each week, you'll hear conversations with women's health professionals, birth workers, educators, and researchers, along with solo episodes where I teach practical skills you can apply to your own cycle right away. If you have ever felt like you should have learned this information sooner, if you have ever felt disconnected from your cycle, if you want to raise the next generation without shame around their bodies, you are in the right place. So grab your tea, open up your notes app, and let's build cycle confidence together.
Welcome to the space where cycles breathe, where the real raw life of a mama leads, from motherhood's highs to charting the low. Your body's story is the star of the show.
Welcome back. I'm so excited to be joined today with somebody who is doing amazing work for fertility awareness out there. So I'll have Sabrina introduce herself. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Emma, for having me on the podcast. It's really great to be here. My name is Sabrina. I am the CEO and co-founder of an app called Cyclisity, which is the official fertility awareness method cycle tracking app for the book Taking Charge of Your Fertility.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about like how you kind of like know about fertility awareness. I know specifically, but the listeners who might not know, and how that your relationship with fertility awareness has evolved.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to take just like a step back to talk a little bit
Yeah.
about fertility awareness for maybe people that are listening that might not know about it, and just to give a little bit more context. And so if you take a step back, you think about, what fertility awareness, how it fits into a woman's life is that at some point in a woman's adult life, you're either trying to, most women, you're either trying to get pregnant or avoid pregnancy. And if you're trying to avoid pregnancy, there's lots of, modern medicine out there where there's, hormonal birth control or like the IUD, which I do think are great options that really gave women a lot of agency over their life and freedom. But that being said, it doesn't work for everybody. So, there's
Hmm.
a lot of side effects from it that some women are affected by, whether that's bloating, whether that's mood swings or anxiety or depression. So, not hormonal birth control isn't for everyone. Not being That being said, it's a great scientific invention that happened to give women a lot more freedom and control over their life. And so fertility awareness, how that fits into this is that it's another option for women to choose to be able to naturally avoid pregnancy or to help try to conceive for pregnancy. And so that's how fertility awareness could fit into a woman's life and how I became aware of fertility awareness method and how I became engrossed into it is actually the author of Taking Charge of Your Fertility, which is a book that it's like a self-taught method of
Right.
being able to learn the fertility awareness method, specifically the sympto-thermal method, which is basically the gold. There's many different types of fertility awareness-based method. Sympto-thermal method, as you know, is like the gold standard of those methods because it uses 2 to 3 different fertility signs to be able to track your cycles. And that is what Toni Weschler teaches in her book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility. And she happens to be my aunt.
I love that. I think that's so cool. And I know from personal experience how much taking charge of your fertility has changed so many people's lives just by like reading it and being able to have that knowledge base of even if they're not using the asymptothermal method or fertility awareness method for family planning, just having that knowledge base of their body is huge. And like there's so much knowledge base in that is so good that it's out there and being able to be um just used and read by so many people.
Totally. Yeah, I love that you called that out. That's exactly right. It's not just about avoiding or achieving pregnancy. It's also about just being in touch with your body. You learn so much about how your body works. And, not only that, but if you have any gynecological issues, charting helps you identify those. So, like, if you're struggling with, PCOS or endometriosis or a short luteal phase, all of that you can kind of gather from charting and being able to take that information to your OBGYN or, naturopath to work through it with them. And so it's just, there's so much you learn about your body and you know most about your body. And by charting, you find out so much information that you could work with professionals on if there are some gynecological issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So you helped develop this app for taking charge of your fertility called Cyclicity. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, we call
Cyclicity?
it
Is
cyclicity. Yeah. Hmm.
Cyclicity. Okay, perfect. So I make sure I'm enunciating the right part. Awesome. So with that, this is a brand new app. We're recording this in January of 2026. And so it's just recently released, correct? Is that
Correct. Just a few weeks
yeah.
ago. So I believe it was at the very, very end of October. So basically beginning of November is when we released in 2025.
Yeah, amazing. So tell us a little bit about like how you came from just kind of having this general knowledge of fertility awareness into building this app.
Yeah, I would love to. I might just get a little bit personal here so that
Yeah,
you can
that's great. I
learn
love
about
that.
how this was developed. So my aunt and I, again, Toni Weschler, the author of Taking Charge of Your Fertility, is my aunt, and we've been really close since I was a little girl. And what's funny is that I feel like what's unique about our relationship is that I think most aunt and uncles, they celebrate birthdays big or holidays big, but instead she celebrated the first day I got my period very bigly. And bigly, that's not really a word, but um, anyways, and so ever since I was little, every year since I got my first period, she's taken me out to either lunch or dinner. And so during those dinners, we'd have conversations about womanhood and what it means to, like be in touch with your body. And it was just a really unique way to celebrate my life. And what I believe probably like 18 years in from the first time I got my period, on one of those dinners, Tony was talking about how she wished she had developed an app that was the perfect companion to her book. Because, for those of you who've never read the book, she teaches the book in a way where you can chart on paper and pen, which is still a great option.
Absolutely.
But, today, I mean, obviously, we're in the 21st century, people have phones in their pockets, and not everyone is, like, carrying around a notepad, and so she realized that, so many people have asked her and would love an app that went alongside the book,
Right.
And as we were talking, I was like thinking about, wait, we might have the perfect team for this. Like, I have a background in software engineering and product design on the tech side. And my husband, who's actually the co founder with us, has a background. He has a medical degree and has a background in venture capital, biotech venture capital. So on the business side. And
Mhm.
so as Tony and I were talking during this one dinner, we were getting so excited because, we felt like we had the team to bring her vision to life. And
Yeah.
that night I went home to my husband and I started talking to him about it. And he saw the opportunity, like what an impact this could have in women's life right away and the opportunity it
Mhm.
had. And so because of his medical background, and he's like, yeah, this makes total sense. Like, it's scientifically backed and proven. And he just loved the idea of how this could really help women get in touch with their own bodies. And so
Mhm.
from that day, basically the next day, this was about, I would say, 3 years ago now or a little more. So we started working really closely with Toni, read her book cover to cover several times, basically had her as our mentor, making sure we were understanding everything properly and really studying the method in depth. Alongside, I started sketching it out on, first on paper and pen. Then,
Yeah.
as I said, I'm a product designer. So I designed a whole app, but I then brought it to a design tool called Figma, started building a prototype for it. And then about a year and a half ago, we did hire an engineering firm because we wanted to make sure that the code base was very secure and done properly. And so I took my prototype of the designs and then worked with them to build the actual product. And so that's kind of how the plan unfolded. But we're really excited that now it's on the Apple App Store.
Yeah, that's so amazing. So, for those people who don't know about fertility awareness in general, it's helpful to like sympto-thermal methods, like you're looking at cervical mucus and basal body temperature, and using that to define when in a fertile window that you can or can't get pregnant. And so, having that knowledge base and being able to use Tony's information from taking charge of your fertility, how does that then like get used in the app and what are people putting in it and how is it? I know so many apps out there that are talking about fertility or like telling you when you are fertile or when you're not. And is that the same type of thing with this or are you interpreting it yourself? How's that look?
Yeah, I love this question. So first thing I should probably mention is that, yeah, when we first started building the app, Tony knew that there was a lot of competitors out there. I mean, the
Yeah.
market is very oversaturated. There's so many apps from like period tracking apps to like prediction apps. And one thing that Tony was adamant and actually is very worried about is those prediction apps where there's a
Yeah.
lot of apps out
Oh,
there
me too.
today where, yeah, they're predicting your future ovulation based on past cycles, which is inherently flawed. And the reason being is because every woman's cycle is different. Not only is your cycle, my cycle different from yours, my one cycle could be different from the next, depending on my lifestyle, whether I'm like more stressed or whether I'm sleeping poorly or, traveling between time zones. And so there's no way an app can predict those types of things that are happening in your life to be able to predict your ovulation in the future. So that was one thing that we were adamant about is that our app is
Right.
not a predictive app. It does not predict your ovulation in the future. And what it does is so there's, three things that are really unique about our app that's different than what's on the market. The first thing is that it is again the perfect companion to Tony's book, meaning it uses Tony's terminology exactly. So there's different, there's like if you're self-taught through Tony's book and you try to use other apps, it could work, but the problem is they're using a lot of terms that actually don't map up to the book, and then so it's easier to get confused. And
For
then
sure.
the second thing that's unique is that we have references points in the app to the book. So let's say you only track cervical fluid and waking temperature, and one day you're like, I actually would love to start tracking cervical position, but I don't remember how to do that. In the app, it'll
Hmm.
tell you what page you need to go to read about it, to be able to learn how to track your cervical position and so forth. As you can imagine, there's lots of
Yeah.
reference
Yeah.
points. And so, yeah, so there's really no app out there that has like a manual, like taking charge of your fertility that ties
Hmm.
directly into app. And then the third thing that's unique about our app is that it actually runs the four FAM rules, which are the fertility awareness method rules, as taught exactly in the book. So again, we're not predictive, but we do help run the 4 FAM rules, meaning that every day you do have to input the information for waking temperature and cervical fluid. And based on what you input, we are running the rules in the background. And again, this is a cycle tracking tool. So it's really to help you with education. It's not supposed to replace your own knowledge base. It's really so you can double check your work. As you probably know, like the 4 FAM rules on like as you learn them, they do become quite easy to learn and like it just becomes part of you. But there are some times where there's like a slow rise temperature or, like a fallback. And then there's like sub rules that can get quite confusing or like you have to reference a book a lot. And so that's what the app handles is it handles all of those like tricky thermal shifts, all the sub rules within the 4 FAM rules. And it hasn't launched yet, but the next thing that we're launching in the app is very tied to an educational tool. So when you click on a day, it will tell you exactly why that day was classified, whether for fertile or not fertile, meaning it will tell you which FAM rules it was running. It will tell you which sub rules it was running, if it was running any. And so Cyclicity is really here to be an additional educational tool. And so we hope that with the book and Cyclicity, that any woman who would love to learn about the fertility awareness method would have all the tools they need to be able to do that. And so we're just really trying to make education on the fertility awareness as easy as possible. And the app is really not to replace the way a woman would need to learn about the fertility awareness method.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful to hear that it's not like taking over it, it's helping as a tool. Because
Exactly.
like you said, and I feel like so I teach a different sympto-thermal method myself as an instructor, and I feel like that's the part where I often come in of like when there's those weird fallback or things
Absolutely.
like that come in and you're like, I have no idea what's going on or what other things are happening, and being able to have those tools as women read through Taking Charge of Your Fertility and being able to know how they can also have that support is great. Just like right there in their fingertips is amazing.
Yeah, and absolutely. And this isn't also trying to replace any instructors either. So, like,
Yeah,
some women like absolutely love working with instructors. And I think that's so great. And it's a way that it's like a third thing, right? Now you have the book,
yeah.
you have an instructor, and you have an app that could work together to really, so that you can feel really confident in the way you're practicing the method.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that this is like such a needed tool and I'm excited about things like this coming out because there's then so many more resources for women to just have this in their hands and being able to know again, know about their bodies, which I think is like the hugest part of all of this for sure.
Ex-
Uh,
exactly.
Yeah. So, what is some of the things through as you were maybe building the app or as you were learning more about the method yourself that you feel like you want people to know about just like tracking their fertility?
Yeah, one thing I would love people to know, and you probably run into this too, is I feel like some people actually, Toni talks about this a lot. When she first wrote the book back in 95, a lot of people would confuse the fertility awareness method with the rhythm method or
Yeah.
like the 28-day cycle and ovulation being on day 14. So I just really want women to know that to really, get it into your bodies that like your cycle is really unique and it's unique to you and it's different between different women. What that means is that, if you believe that a cycle is 28 days and you ovulate on day 14 every time, like you're like, of course, why do I need to learn a fertility awareness method? Like I'll just use a calendar.
Right.
That's very dangerous because it's like it's so cool to be able to be so in touch with your body that you can tell on a, daily basis whether you are and are not fertile because your body's giving you signs. And once you learn those signs, it's really empowering because I think a lot of, women aren't taught this. Actually, it's never really taught this, I think, unless you're seeking it
No.
out. Like you're not
Yep.
taught in
Yep.
school when it's just like basic things about your body you probably should know. Like, for example, your cervical fluid changes throughout your cycle as you approach ovulation. And that's due to like the estrogen that's in your body. And so it goes from like dry to sticky to creamy to egg white. So it gets wetter and wetter as you get closer to ovulation. And some women might think that, oh, I might be having like a yeast infection or, I'm having some kind of problem every month. And you're not like you're having such a normal and beautiful part of how your body works. And I just wish that it was something that we were taught in health classes, but because we're not, it's what I want women to take away is like the fertility awareness. Yes, there is a learning curve. It's not like you could just pop a pill and it's not that easy, right? But
Right.
once you learn it, it's really just second nature. It takes
Hmm.
maybe 5 minutes more out of your day. Maybe, you like do it when you're just going to like check your cervical fluid, when you're just going to the bathroom. It's like 1 second in the morning to take your temperature. So it just becomes second nature. Tony likes to talk about how it's like riding a bicycle or tying your shoelaces. It
Right.
takes the first time you do it, you're like, okay, what is going on? Like, this is so
Hmm.
complicated. But once you know, you're never going to forget it. And I think that's what I want women to take away is that every woman has the capacity to learn about it. It's not too hard. You can do it. And once you learn it, you'll really feel empowered in your body.
Yeah, I think that's so great because I think that's a lot of people, I think, when they first start learning something, either like reading a book or working with somebody, taking some type of course, they're like, okay, like this is so much information. How am I ever going to like learn it and like build this into my daily life? And
Right.
then once you get into these habits, you're like me after using sympto-thermal method for 4 years, like, I don't really think about it. Like, I'm, like,
Right.
aware because I'm
Yeah.
charting, but I don't really think about it. I was telling somebody recently, like, I subconsciously, like, pop my thermometer into my mouth every morning that, like, if there's, like, a weird time that I wake up in the middle of the night randomly, like,
So
I'll still
funny.
take my temperature because 'cause I'm just, like, so in that subconscious thing, and I
It's
think
like
that,
in your
like,
habit. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. When you're building that habit to start, it could be really hard, but having tools of like resources of like, okay, like this is how you do it, this is how you can do it well, and so you can get the best data possible is amazing. And so that's
Yes.
yeah.
It's really amazing.
So what do you feel like you're excited about with the future of fertility awareness in general and like maybe specifically to the development of the app, but just in general, like what are you excited about coming this year?
Yeah, for sure. So, in terms of the development of the app, one thing I should let you all know is that we are a self-funded app, meaning that, we're completely in control of the company and we're paying for everything ourselves. But that does mean that things just take a little longer to develop. We did make
Mhm.
the explicit choice to be self-funded because we know it was just so important for us that we can advocate for our users and customers all the time. Women's health data is very sensitive and important, and so we wanted to make sure that every woman felt that they had full control over their data.
Yeah.
And so what that meant was, like, on our app, when you first go through the few screens that take you into the app, you'll notice how we ask how you wanna store your data, and it actually is
Mhm.
within your own iCloud account. And so we don't actually have no access to your data at all. Like, it's like like, it's as if, when you store your photos in iCloud, it's the same way. You're storing it in your own personal account, so we don't have any
Mhm.
access to your data. And so that was an explicit choice. But we felt that to be able to make these choices, we needed to be in control of the app. And
Yeah.
so right now, the reason Apple App Store app came out first before the Android one was because because we're self-funded, it just takes a little bit longer for us to make the money, to create the money, and also to fund it. And so what I'm excited for is to get it out into the Android app store soon. We're working really hard on that. And then another slight limitation right now is it's only in the US and Canada, and we're working really hard to get it out to the rest of the world. And so those are things in terms of what I'm excited from the app is just getting it out there so that everyone who
Yeah.
wants to learn about the fertility awareness method could use it. I would love to have it worldwide, especially because Tony's book is translated into 12 different languages. And so I think
Right.
it's a tool that really could help people throughout the world. And so that's something I'm really excited for. In terms of fertility awareness, I just think there's this new movement in our maybe generation where I guess a personal story I have is that I was on birth control pill for about 15 years because I went on it when I was 15 years old. And I went on it because I went to the doctors because I had teen acne. And then, they were like, oh, take this pill. ended up being the birth control pill, which my mom was not aware that I was on. And because she thought I
Yeah.
was just getting on acne medication. And I think, as I mentioned, I'm not against the hormonal birth control at all. I think it's great invention that gives a lot of women control over their lives. But I just felt like a lot of millennial generations didn't get consent on what they were getting onto
For
or were
sure.
never told the side effects. And so, I've tried actually going off several times in the last few years, but every time I broke out into like crazy cystic acne or had other, side effects coming off the pill. And so I just think there's this new movement maybe within our generation of being like, okay, wait a minute, like, is this the right thing for me? Like, for a lot of women,
Yeah.
they get put on the pill to stop heavy bleeding or cramps, or it's really, what I learned through the last few years is that it's really just masking the problem. Like, it might help with
Yeah.
cramps, it might help with heavy bleeding, which in my case, it really did help with acne, but it never got to the root problem. So then when I was trying to get off of it, I was having even worse acne because I never actually resolved the issue that I was having when I had the acne problem back at when I was 15. And so what
Right.
I'm really excited about in terms of the field is I think people are starting to realize that, okay, there is actually another option. And, I am smart enough to learn this option. And I
Hmm.
think I think a lot of times I don't fault the doctors at all because you're in the doctor's meeting room in like 15 minutes and you're like out. It's the
Right.
doctor's
Yeah.
lists are
Yep.
so short, and there's no way they could teach you about the fertility awareness method in 15 minutes. And I think
Hmm.
like even seeing your work, seeing all the work out there of all the instructors, I really think there's this new movement of really making women feel empowered in their own body and to say that no, you have other options. Like, sure, if the hormonal birth control works for you, that's great. But if it doesn't, there is this other alternative called the fertility awareness method. And it's a great alternative and it's very effective, especially if you're using the sympto-thermal method. And so I just really think it's here. And I think there's so many women that's gonna benefit from this new like knowledge of fertility awareness method.
Absolutely. I think that you hit on so many things that are so important to just talk about in general. But I think the biggest thing about all of this is just feeling like women are empowered and consent to what they're doing with their body. And I think that that's a huge piece of it.
Yes,
I do want to go back, which was one of my questions, but you mentioned it, and so I want to go back and just harp on it a little bit more. You talked about because you're self-funded, that the like data is super safe because it's just stored within the like, someone's iCloud or whatever way that they choose to do that. Yeah, so that's like a big concern for a lot of people as they're considering apps, and so I think that's really important. Then I'm glad that that's the priority for what you all are working on because I think that unfortunately we live in a society that that data can be used against women, and being able
absolutely.
to have that as a safety net is really good. So I appreciate that, and I'm glad to hear that that's a priority.
Thank you. Yeah, there is also an option during that setup where you could just store it on your phone if you don't want it in the cloud at all. That option
Yeah.
makes me a little nervous because if you lose your phone, you lose your data.
Right, right, right.
So it does make me nervous, but if some people I know are really concerned about that, so there is that option, to be able
Yeah,
to just store it on your phone. But yeah, we it's like our number one priority that
yeah.
every woman feel that they have full control over their data. And that's why we're a subscription model because we don't
Mhm,
sell your data, we don't run any ads. Our whole thing is that we provide you a service to be able to learn and get more educated about the fertility awareness method and to be able to support you in your charting journey.
mhm.
And so we try to keep it as affordable as possible. And that's how we run our business. But right now, every dollar that we make, we're just putting right back into the business. And honestly, every dollar we're making everywhere else, we're also putting back
Yeah,
into. So we're
for
really just
sure.
trying to make this as best as possible and the best experience as possible.
Absolutely, I love that. So I know, like, because of the way apps work, subscription prices may change over time, but what is it today as for people who are listening currently as it's starting off?
Yeah, it's 19, I believe 99 a year. And then if you wanted to do a monthly one, it's a slightly more expensive. So I think it comes out to like $35 a year, but I think it's like maybe three-ish dollars a month. So the most affordable option is to do the one that's 19.99 USD dollars a year.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's for most people, that's gonna be extremely accessible, so that's amazing and such a good way to get that information in there. So there I'm sure we could talk for hours about so many different things, but I to kinda wrap up, with part of this conversation, when people you because this is a tool, the app is a tool to be able to help with the book, is there the recommendation is still for people to, like, read through Tony's book first and then use this just as their charting tool instead of paper. Is that how I'm understanding the best use of it?
Yes, that's right. So the Cyclicity is not like an FDA approved medical device. It's really, again,
Right.
just to be, it's an educational tool to support you in your fertility awareness method journey. So it's still really important that you know the rules yourself and you understand how to measure your cervical fluid and how to take your waking temperature and cervical position if that's something that you'd like to do as well. And so we do recommend reading the book and then using the app alongside the book. I will say I know the book, some people get it and they're quite intimidated because how big it is. But one thing
Yep.
about Tony's book is that it's packed with information. And so you don't have to read it cover to cover. Like you could read the section that applies to you. There's a section about natural birth control. There's a section about trying to conceive. There's sections about just gynecological health issues. And so you can use it as like a reference book to make it so
Yeah.
you're reading the part that matters to you. I will say, I know from most people's experiences, they start reading it and they end up reading cover to cover because it's so much information that you never knew about. So
Mhm.
I want people to feel really confident that, you don't get this book and be like, oh my God, I have to read cover to cover. And the app's really there
Yeah.
to guide you back to the book so that if you forget something, we'll tell you which page to go back to. So it's really, a perfect companion with one another. I will say though, if you feel like self-teaching from a book and an app is not enough, then we do recommend going and looking for instructors that teach the sympto-thermal method, like yourself. And I think that's a great method to learn the fertility awareness method and then still be able to use this app Cyclicity.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. Those are all great things. And yeah, I feel like for somebody who hasn't ever seen Taking Charge of Your Fertility, it's a dense, like it's a physically thick book. And
Yeah.
that can be overwhelming. It looks a little bit like a textbook, but what an amazing reference to be able to go back to when there's questions and when you have those things and being able to have Cyclicity be able to tell you like which page to go to. That like that's amazing. That feels like it would be really helpful. To be able to be like, "Okay, like, this is the thing that I need to learn more about for sure."
Exactly, and, like, it looks like textbook, but actually Tony writes in a very conversational way, so I
Yeah.
think a
Oh,
lot
for
of
sure.
people read it and they're like, "Actually, this was really easy to read," so I really
Mhm.
don't want people to feel intimidated because, again, you can read the chapters that matter to you, but I bet
Yeah.
that once you start reading it, you're not gonna wanna put it down.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. I feel like it's one of those things where you just, like, once you start learning the information, you're like, "Oh my goodness, I needed to learn all." Like, I want to learn
Yes,
all of the different
exactly.
things. For
Yeah.
sure. Amazing. Well, thanks for sharing so much about, what you're doing with the app and all of the things. What else do you wanna share before we close out today?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that, I just want to share about, we touched on this a bit, but how empowering it is to be connected to your body. And one thing I want to share just personally is that we talked about how, the fertility awareness method can be used for achieving pregnancy or preventing pregnancy. But one thing that I've learned through charting is, again, I went off birth control. I was on birth control, hormonal birth control for 15 years. I actually went off of it about 8 to 9 months ago now, and my
Mhm.
cycles, the first few cycles, I will warn you, is quite wonky when you first go off birth control because your body's just trying to regulate. And I wanted to go off of it because I've been wanting to for a long time to practice a fertility awareness method, but also because eventually I want kids and I wanted to make sure my body was, kind of regulating before that. And from charting, I've learned that actually my luteal phases are really short. So
Mm.
it's kind of ranging from like some days, some cycles was like 6 days. So one time it went back to 12, but then it fell back to 8. And just so for the listeners here, your luteal phase is not supposed to fluctuate like this, and it's
Yes.
not supposed to be this short. Like, a healthy luteal phase is around 14 days, give or take 2 days, and you definitely want it to be above 10 days because if it's any less, it doesn't give the egg enough time to burrow, and that means that it could lead to a miscarriage. And so this is something that I learned way before I was even ready to get pregnant, but it's something that I'm so grateful to knowing because now I'm able to work with my naturopath and I'm able to work with my OBGYN to figure out, okay, what can I do to lengthen my luteal phase? Is it just that I need to wait a little longer for my cycles to regulate coming off hormonal birth control, or is there certain things that naturally that I can do to actually support me in my journey? And that's something that I would have never known if I wasn't
Yeah.
charting. And so I just think it's like so much more than just achieving or preventing pregnancy. It's so
Hmm.
much about, okay, this is what's going on in my body. And I have so much knowledge that I can bring to my doctors or healthcare professionals now to be able to work together on.
Yeah, that's so important. I think that that's one of the things that so easily forget about how much health knowledge can really be in tracking cycles and how powerful that can be and how much of like an easy fix a short luteal phase is. Obviously, like it takes some time. It takes some might take some other medication or supplements or all of those things. But in the grand scheme of things, like that's something that you can find the root cause of what's happening and support that and all of those things. And that's amazing
Exactly.
that you can find that and be able to use that for your advantage in the future of just being in best health as possible. And if you want to having kids in the future, then that's an option too.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that woman gets to experience this.
Yeah, amazing. I am so excited for this all. And where can people connect with you if they're hoping to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on social media channels like TikTok and Instagram at Wandering Sabrina. Also, this we are a very small team. So if you are emailing us through either the app or the website, you're probably either reaching me or my husband Max. So you can reach us directly there as well.
Awesome. Great. We'll make sure to put all of those things in the show notes and be able to link to Cyclicity for those people who are in the US and Canada who have iPhones. And then hopefully, as it keeps going out, I'll put out an update when it does. And I just thanks so much for being here and sharing all your knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great chatting with you.
Thanks so much for being here today on the Cyclical Doula podcast. If this episode resonated with you, the most powerful thing that you can do is to share it. Send it to a friend, text it to your sister, forward it to that group chat. This is how conversations about our bodies start changing. Quietly, organically, woman to woman. If you are listening and thinking, okay, I want help applying this to my cycle, I offer free cycle clarity calls. It's a relaxed conversation over Zoom where we talk through your goals, your charting practices, and what kind of support that would actually make sense for you. You can book one at emma.com/free. And if you haven't already, make sure you're following or subscribe to the Cyclical Doula podcast so that you don't miss future episodes. And if you feel called to leave a rating or a review, it genuinely helps more women find this work. So thank you. You deserve to understand your body. You deserve to feel confident in your reproductive choices. And you don't have to figure it out alone. I'll see you next week. Thanks for being here.
Welcome to the space where cycles breathe, where the real raw life of a mama leads. From motherhood's highs to charting the low, your body's stored